will be reading a passage from Farmer Giles of Ham by Tolkien. I chose this passage because it shows even if you don't think you're a hero, you can be one. After 3 days, they were back over the borders of their own country, and their arrival caused such wonder and uproar as he seldom been seen between two seas before. In the first village that they stopped at, food and drink was showered on them free, and half the young lads wanted to join in the procession. Giles chose out a dozen likely young fellows. He promised them good wages and bought them such mounts as he could get. He was beginning to have ideas. After resting a day, he rode again. When his new escort at his heels, they sang songs in his honor, rough and ready, but they sounded good in his ears. Some folk cheered and others laughed. It was a sight both merry and wonderful. Soon Farmer Giles took a bend southward and steered towards his own home, and he never went near the court of the king, nor sent any message. But the news of the return of Master Hedigus spread like fire from the west, and there was great astonishment and confusion. For he came hard on the heels of a royal proclamation, building all the towns and villages to go into the mourning for the fall of the brave knights in the pass of the mountains. Wherever Giles went, the mourning was cast aside, and bells were set ringing, and people thronged by the wayside, shouting and waving their caps and their scarves. But they booed the poor dragon, till he began bitterly to regret the bargain he had made. It was most humiliating for one of the ancient and imperial lineage. When they got back to Ham, all the dogs barked at him scornfully, all except Garm. He had eyes, ears, and nose only for his master. Indeed, he went quite off his head and turned somersaults all along the street. Ham, of course, gave the farmer a wonderful welcome, but probably nothing pleased him more than finding the miller at the loss for a sneer at the blacksmith quite out the conscience. This is not the end of the affair, mark my words, he said. But he could not think of anything worse to say, and hung his head gloomily. Farmer Giles, with his 6 men and his dozen likely lads, and the dragon and all. He went up the hill, and there they stayed quiet for a while. Only the person was invited to the house. The news soon reached the capital, and forgetting the official mourning, and their business as well, people gathered in the streets. There was much shouting and noise. The king was in his great house, biting his nails and tugging his beard. Between grief and rage and financial anxiety, his mood was so grim, and no one dared to speak to him. But at last the noise of his own town came to his ears. It did not sound like mourning or weeping. "What is all the noise about?" he demanded. "Tell the people to go indoors and mourn decently. It sounds more like a goose fair." The dragon had come back. "Lord," they answered. "What?" he said, the king. "Summon our knights, or what is left of them." "There is no need, Lord," they answered. "With Master Hedigus behind him, and the dragon is tame as tame, or so we are informed. The news has not long come in, and reports are conflicting." "Bless our souls," said the king, looking greatly relieved. "And to think that we ordered a dirge to be sung for the fellow the day after tomorrow. Cancel it. Is there any sign of our treasure?" "Reports say that there is a veritable amount of it, Lord," they answered. "When will it arrive?" said the king eagerly. "A good man, this Hedigus, send him to us as soon as he comes." There was some hesitation in replying to this. At last someone took courage and said, "Your pardon, Lord, but we hear that the farmer has turned aside towards his own home. But doubtless he will hasten here in a suitable remnant at the earliest opportunity." "Doubtless," said the king, "but confound his remnant. He had no business to go home without reporting. We are much displeased." The earliest opportunity presented itself and passed, and so did many later ones. In fact, Farmer Giles had been back for a good week or more, and still no word or news of him came to the court. On the 10th day, the king's rage exploded. "Send for the fellow," he said, and they sent. It was a day's hard riding to Ham, each way. "He will not come, Lord," said the trembling messenger 2 days later. "Lightning of the heaven," said the king, "command command him to come on Tuesday next, or he shall be cast into prison for life. Your pardon, Lord, but he still will not come, said a truly miserable messenger, returning along on a Tuesday. 10,000 thunders, said the king. Take this fool to prison instead. Now send some men to fetch the churls and chains. He bellowed to those that stood by. How many men, they faltered. There's a dragon and tailbiter and broomsticks and fiddlesticks, said the king. Then he ordered his white horse, and he summoned his knights, or what was left of them, and a company of men at arms, and he rode off the fiery anger. All the people ran out of their houses in surprise. But Farmer Giles had now become more than the hero of the countryside. He was the darling of the land, and folk did not cheer the knights and men at arms as they went by, though they still took off their hats to the king, and he drew near to him as he looked to grow more sullen. In some villages, the people shut their doors, and not a face could be seen. Then the king changed from hot wrath to cold anger. He had a grim look as he rode up to the last river beyond, which lay Ham, the house of the farmer. He had a mind to burn the place down, but there was the Farmer Giles on the bridge, sitting on the gray mare with tailbiter in his hand. No one else to be seen except Garm, who was lying on the road. Good morning, Lord, said Giles, as cheerful as day, not wanting to be spoken to. The king eyed him coldly. Your manners are unfit for our presence, said he, but that does not excuse you from coming from when sent for. I had not thought of it, Lord, and there's a fact, said Giles. I had matters of my own to mind, and he had wasted time on your errands. 10,000 thunders, cried the king in hot rage again. To the devil with you and your insolence. No reward will you get after this, and you will be lucky if you escape hanging. And hanged you shall be, unless you beg our pardon here and now, and give us back our sword. Eh? Said Giles. I've got my reward, I reckon. Findings, keepings.